What might that any of those alternatives be that would provide Israel with the means to do what it would like to do in Rafah?
Well, I can imagine that it's going to be something about some sort of guarantees from external, not forces, but other countries that could put pressure on Hamas somehow. Perhaps that's what it would be. I mean, of course, for the Netanyahu government to turn away from an attack on Rafah, which it has been telegraphing now for weeks, they would have to have something that they could turn to their own supporters and say, this is an acceptable alternative. It's hard to imagine what that would be, though, that the Netanyahu government would accept it.
Of course, Netanyahu's government has said that it will not stop until it removes Hamas from Gaza. And Hamas is, of course, clustered now in Rafah. General, you know the strategies, the playbook, and the weaponry used by the IDF. To what extent will it be possible for IDF soldiers, for the military as a whole, to conduct precision strikes and preserve the lives of civilians in that area? Or will you tell us that it's not possible?
Well, let me try it this way, Joe. I would imagine that the professional soldiers of the Israeli Defense Force will do what they can within that sort of a context to limit the casualties. But I don't know how you can actually significantly limit civilian casualties when you're talking about so many people packed into such a dense urban area, because obviously they're going to be shooting into buildings. They're going to be launching precision weapons into buildings, and you have no idea who all's inside those buildings. So this is difficult, and this is where I think the administration is running out of patience with the Netanyahu government, and is going to, I mean, almost the only thing they have left is either a breakthrough solution on the hostages, or to tell the Israelis, you can no longer use weapons that we provide on anything that is involved with Rafah, for example. I mean, they can, in fact, restrict where these things are used.
Well, General, just how difficult will it be to reach that breakthrough on the hostages? How hopeful are you for a ceasefire agreement in the near term?
Well, of course, when you're talking about dealing with Hamas, I have zero confidence that we know exactly who they have, who's still alive. And I'm also not entirely sure that Hamas even controls completely all the hostages that are still alive. I think Secretary Blinken and his team have done a great job working with other countries in the region to try to get some sort of solution. But we're at the situation, of course, where one side's saying, we're not going to do anything, or we're not going to stop until we get all the hostages. And the other side is saying, we won't release all the hostages until there's a ceasefire. So that's that kind of intractable situation that the Secretary was referencing.
General Hodges, we're looking at a dire situation as well in Ukraine right now, following a barrage of missile attacks from Russia against its energy infrastructure. The Zaporizhia nuclear power plant was taken offline for 5 hours. This is something that months ago we were very concerned about. And I wonder, as Vladimir Putin has succeeded in using the cold as a weapon, will he use that power plant as a weapon against Ukraine?
Well, certainly the possibility is there, because Mr. Putin clearly has demonstrated very clearly he doesn't care about any risk to civilians or the environmental impact of the kind of activities that they conduct. So you have to take these threats seriously, but this is also why you cannot treat him as a responsible negotiating partner, that somehow anybody can work out an agreement or negotiate a clear, acceptable solution to this war in Ukraine. And I think the only way he ever gets stopped is if the United States, if we declare that we want Ukraine to win, that it's in our strategic interest that Ukraine wins, and then we commit to providing everything that they need to win. That's the only way that Putin is ever going to be stopped. Otherwise, he will continue doing exactly what he's doing. And he feels now that he probably has a mandate to do that after this fake election.
Well, sir, just hours ago, we saw Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene file a motion to vacate against the House Speaker, suggesting that what would actually trigger that vote to oust him would be if he puts Ukraine aid on the floor of the House. She is fundamentally opposed to any more U.S. dollars going to Ukraine. What would you tell the Congresswoman?
Well, of course, I'd point out to the Congresswoman that almost no money goes to Ukraine. The vast majority of money in these aid packages actually goes to U.S. defense industry to produce the things to replace what we provide to Ukraine. So it's a willful misunderstanding of the process, and it also is strategically illiterate because the benefit of Ukraine defeating Russia is that it conveys to the Chinese the biggest long-term threat, that we are serious about sovereignty, respect for international law, respect for human rights. So this is part of deterring China from what it might do, which would be a real problem for the United States. It's also about American economy. What Russia does against Ukraine directly increases prices in the United States for food and energy because of the disruption of food supplies and energy supplies by Russia. So it helps us economically if Ukraine is able to defeat Russia. So I would think a Congresswoman that she would be better advised and better informed about why this is important versus somehow a blanket or using every maneuver she can to block this aid from coming to Ukraine.